Well, it was an incredibly ignorant statement for him to make. I don't give a damn about his apology. I think the suspension was appropriate. I think that's all this should be. But I'm not going to call for him to be fired and stuff like that. People make mistakes, as ignorant as that mistake was. And totally untrue. You're trying to tell me that the skin color of a particular football player is what impedes your ability to see the football in his hand or whatever. There's plenty of people that's darker and lighter than Lamar Jackson that have been in the National Football League. And the fact of the matter is, it made absolutely no sense what he said, and it showed to some degree where his mind was going when he looked at this mercurial all-world athlete like Lamar Jackson performing the way that he did. I don't know how in God's name something like that could come out of your mouth. But this guy, Tim Ryan, doesn't have a history, to my knowledge, of doing such a thing. And I'm not going to sit here on national television and excoriate him as a person or character assassinate him as a person. I don't know of any kind of situation like this, any kind of history, any kind of background that was indicative of him making this kind of mistake. But just speaking about specifically what he said here, it was wrong, it was insensitive, it was ignorant, it was stupid, and it was inexcusable for him to say what he said. It's just that simple to me, but I'm not going to go beyond that.
This is why I insist that we have a light background behind me, because sometimes I like to camouflage myself so Stephen A. can't see me.
Right.
How does a comment like this come to be? Mm-hmm. Because the question about people calling for firing need to slow down.
Yeah.
And even the suspension, you know what? I don't feel great about that either. And I know I've been invited to a lot of cookouts in the past when racial issues come up. I don't know if I will be based on these comments or not, but this is the way I feel. When someone says something like that, you think, are they a bad guy? Are they a stupid guy? You can't really know what's in a guy's heart. So you ask yourself, how does a comment like that come out of his mouth on the air? You've worked in radio, I've worked in radio. There is a lot of pressure to give a take, especially an original take. And when you've talked about someone 1,000 times, you're looking for something new to say. And you're willing to think about all kinds of crazy ideas because you're just kind of shooting you're chewing the fat, as they say. Now, race is ever present. Every time you'll bring up, Stephen A., something like a black coach wouldn't be treated this way, my comment is usually race is ever present, and it clearly has an influence on a lot, and a lot of the extent of that influence is unknowable, right? But I assume that it's there a lot of the time, even if I don't, maybe it wasn't the deciding factor in a given circumstance. A lot of times it was or had an influence. And I think because race is ever present and people are looking for things to say on the radio, to new angles and stuff, and since it's the elephant in the room, there's this feeling like, wait a minute. We shouldn't shy away from some idea because of race, because would that make, especially, I'm assuming, if it's, I can even speak from experience, as a white person, does that mean, wait, am I shying away from it? And is that sort of racist in a way? Not racist, but being overly racially conscious?
Should he lose his job over this? Absolutely not. Anybody could mess up and say something that they should not have said. So I'm very compassionate in that regard. All I'm saying is in the throes of doing that, there is nothing wrong with highlighting the fact that, look, bro, that's not something you should have said. That makes no sense. It's highly insensitive. It connotates a lot of different things that we don't even have the time to get into today, nor does a lot of people in our society want to get into. You are a broadcaster disseminating out of your mouth words and messages that reach hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. You have to heighten your level of sensitivity. Be cognizant of that. So what we're going to do here is punish you by highlighting how ignorant your statement was, making sure that we engage in dissuasive measures so you don't do something like that, nor should anybody think of saying something like that again, and we move forward.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with that.
The issue I have with that is if you say something stupid, and I think there is if not unanimity, at least a general consensus, it's a stupid comment, right?
Yes.
And you and I both have been on the radio and have made stupid comments because if you're filling 2, 3, 4 hours of content and you're discussing ideas and it doesn't feel as formal as television a lot of the time.
You would just characterize it as a stupid comment?
Yeah, well, that's the point.
Not a racial comment?
Well,
it's racially insensitive comment? Because that's different
but
than
that's why I'm saying it's
I
stupid.
believe it was racially insensitive,
But
yes.
a racially insensitive comment can be categorized as stupid.
Okay.
Right. The point is that the real question for me is, was there malice? And is that is that a damaging thing to say that can't be corrected simply by the public reaction? In other words, when you say we don't know, when you say something like that, the reaction of people to you is, to me, sort of that's what you get. You become a laughingstock. The fact, if you are also suspended or your job is threatened, I just don't like the kind of chilling effect that has on people. Because it creates an atmosphere where people are afraid to speak extemporaneously because they're afraid they may say something.
That's fair.
Say something stupid. You say something stupid.
That's fair, but there are things that you know to stay away from. And when we say something that's racially insensitive, don't tell me that an experienced broadcaster like that is that ignorant that he didn't. You might not have been thinking at the time, but there's no question that you could have known that was racially insensitive. How people are going to take that. But here's what I wanted to address: the bigger point. You talk about sometimes people take hard takes. I can speak for myself. I try to be as real and authentic as I possibly can be. Why? Because it's sustainable. I don't have to wake up and create some kind of character or whatever. It is who I am. And so as a result of that, you have faith in that. I believe that when a person, particularly listening to radio analysts, when they're calling the games and stuff like that, they're not looking for a hot take. They're calling the game. They're calling the game because that's their job. And the fact of the matter is that I don't think this was him trying to get a hot take or say something that would resonate to the match. He was calling the game. But somehow, some way that came into your mind. Why? I don't know the answer to that.
Because that's what I mean.
But why? Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.